I just finished watching a few episodes of Blue Therapy on YouTube, and let me just say that Deborah and Chioma represent the worst aspects of modern femininity. I mean, women like them are the reason men go red pill. And I know this is a sitcom. I know, the company, they're probably obviously trying to make some money or sales, so they're creating a very colorful story. But I think their characters, they're certainly worth dissecting. And so I'm going to focus mostly on Shioma for this particular podcast, and then I'll probably focus on some of the other characters later on. But Shioma, okay, the first thing I recognize about her. So, first off, she starts the series by mentioning that she wants to do the social experiment. She's very comfortable being on camera. Her boyfriend obviously is not, but she feels as if this situation is just going to shock them into a better place in the relationship. She's hoping shock therapy will be the answer to their problems, right? She literally states this at, early on in the video. Then, as she sits down and talks with the therapist, her first complaint is that her boyfriend is very concerned about image, almost to the point to where she feels as if it puts her and him at risk, and he, does risks that she feels like are a little bit excessive. But she literally goes on and on about how he's too image driven, and his job is really based upon the way he presents himself, but she feels like he goes too far. With that said, I feel like this was her first error. Her first error was bringing her boyfriend into this situation. Why? Because, okay, if you're in a relationship with a man that his entire job is based upon his image, or image is a huge aspect of, how profitable he's going to be in sales or how profitable he's going to be in business, why are you going to go now, bring all of his business and put it on national television or just put it on public to where the entire world can scrutinize it? Why would you do that? I feel like that was a really, really bad move. Because now what happens now is if one of his potential clients goes and sees this video where they're arguing or where she's talking about all his bad qualities, what is that client going to do? They're likely going to be less inclined to want to close a deal with him. So I'm like, that was a really bad move. Like, I totally understand her having, concerns, and I feel like those concerns should have been addressed about, her feeling like maybe he was overspending or doing things like that. I could understand how that might be concerning, but the way she handled that was horrible. Like, I'm like, if that's really a big issue, you go talk about that in private, or go do a therapy session in private where there's not cameras and there's not, if this is not made public to the entire world, because now his business is literally at risk for for the decision that she made. And I'm like, that was a really, really, really bad decision. And the way things were positioned, I guess the way they kind of positioned the skit, it seems as if Paul came in there not really fully having an understanding as what he was getting himself into. I don't think he was fully aware that all of his business was going to be put on blast. Because I think if he did know, that he probably wouldn't have moved forward. So yeah, so that was a bad setup. If your boyfriend or significant other has a job that largely depends upon the way that they are presented and their image, then don't go and put all of their dirty laundry on blast for the entire public to see. That's like, duh. Handle that behind closed doors. So I think that was just one of the first big mistakes that I noticed. Another mistake that I noticed is, so she made this comment, right, that she's a social influencer. She mentioned that earlier in the episode. And, further into the conversation, she also talked about how she felt neglected sometimes and how she oftentimes turned to social media to get validation, and turned to some of the different followers and different people, to get emotionally filled up, for lack of a better term. Again, that's another really, really, really big red flag. I understand. I think I understand where she was coming from, where she was mentioning that she felt as if he didn't necessarily always provide the emotional support that she wanted, or she didn't feel as if they emotionally connected. And so I recognize women. I think in general, we just tend to be more emotional beings. Men sometimes don't always don't always get it. So it's very common to hear a woman talking about, talking about their men like just not getting it. Like that's a common complaint. And so I understand where she's coming from. The biggest issue, I think the biggest issue is that she was taking those emotional needs and turning to social media to get it filled. Why? Because social media is a matrix and because social media is fake. And I think this is actually this, also reveals a deeper issue that many women struggle with, that sometimes they turn to social media to get validated, to get self-validation, when social media is not real. When people can send put a extra comment like, oh wow, you're so amazing, or you're so beautiful, or so this or that, and they can share comments and do things with little to no risk associated with it. And so it may seem exciting and it may seem validating because you're hearing those words, but there's no validity to it because you don't know the person, because there's no relationship involved. And so and also because of social media is so immediate, we can hear, I mean, a woman can get DMs, can get all these flattering messages multiple times in a day. And sometimes I think that high that a person can get from getting those DMs, from getting those messages, and the reason I say high is because literally these companies created these social platforms to create the same effect that you get when you're like, taking dopamine. Like they literally do that. Again, it creates this kind of false sense of well-being, this false sense of happiness. And then when you compare your experience that you're having on social media with these kind of nameless or faceless accounts with a real living person that you see and you interact with on a day-to-day basis, there is no comparison. You are comparing a false reality, you know what I mean, or partial reality to the truth, to what's actually real. And they're never going to line up. And so, when she said that, I was listening to her and I was like, yeah, it's one thing to desire a deeper emotional connection with your significant other, but it's a totally another thing to now turn to social media or need social media to validate you in that sense. And, based upon that, since I'm saying, okay, if that is what she's doing, then she's never going to be satisfied. She'll never be able to be satisfied because she's basing her needs on a false premise. She's basing her needs on, a fantasy. And what person can live up to a fantasy? And so when I heard that, I was like, man, that's, that really stuck out to me. And then not to mention, her being a social influencer, and she's starting off the episode by saying, oh, I'm doing this because I'm thinking this is going to be better for us. But then in the same sentence, she also says, oh, but he's not really comfortable being on camera. And oh, by the way, he's very concerned about his image. And I feel like she started to tell on herself. She really started to tell on herself. And at the end of the day, after listening to her, I'm thinking, I honestly don't think this is really about them. I think this is more for her. And then she's just kind of hoping that he fits into her plans or fits into her expectations. But she kind of sounds like she needs the attention to a certain extent. Her character sounded as if she needed the attention. And, as she was explaining that in more detail, to me, it seemed to me more evident. Another thing, there's so many things. Another thing that stood out to me, she expressed concerns about her soon-to-be, sister-in-law and the way that she treated her. And to be fair, I mean, what her sister-in-law was doing was kind of out of pocket. You just dropping your kids off randomly for you to go hang out with your friends, acting as if this person is a on-call babysitter. Like, that's not right. So I think her concerns were totally valid. Her concerns were totally valid there. What I think, though, she did wrong was that, as she's talking about her sister, then she calls her out of her name. She literally calls her out of her name, and I'm like, there's a way to disagree. There's a way to bring up a issue while still maintaining respect. And from what I noticed about her interaction with Paul is that she doesn't seem to necessarily have the skills to understand when she's actually being totally and completely disrespectful. And we start to see, yes, like there's times later on in the series where Paul starts to act some kind of way and he does behavior that I feel like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit juvenile or that's a little bit too much. But to be fair, I think early on he felt disrespected from her, and that's because she did things that was disrespectful. You don't call a man sister out of her name. You know what I mean? You don't like degrade a man sister in front of him and then expect him to be okay. You can express concerns. You can say, "Hey, I don't like the way she's doing this," but still treat her as a human. But she goes and does that, and then she insinuates that they are, having a that they're like having some weird incestuous relationship or have had one. And I'm like, at this point, she's just going below the belt. She's just doing too much, literally. And so, as I'm listening to her concerns, I'm like, all your concerns are valid. And I think this is in general, I think one of her issues is that some of her concerns are very valid. Okay, him spending a little bit too much money, or maybe her feeling like she wants a deeper emotional connection. All the things she brought up, I'm like, yeah, like I could see why that may be something that you want to address, or it's worth exploring. Like most of her issues, I didn't really see a problem with, but the way she addressed them to me, they were so clumsy and they were so disrespectful. I feel as if she herself made the problems worse. She made the problems worse. And I'm like, no wonder he was responding in a certain way. No wonder he was being defensive, or, Paul was saying things or not listening, because it's like the way that she came at him, the way that she mentioned some of these things, the way she was demeaning him in the process. It's like, no one's going to be able to listen to you when you are criticizing them or when you're throwing them under the bus. And it seems as if she was very much throwing them under the bus, whether or not that was her intention. Again, the way they portrayed these characters on the series, they did a fantastic job of really portraying her as a mess. They did a fantastic job of that. And again, it's situations like these where I'm just like, this is why men go red pill, because she represents a modern female ideology. And this goes back into one of my final points. One of my final points is that at the end of the day, her and Paul have very different values. Based upon the way she, described herself, a woman who likes to go out with friends, likes to go out dancing and by herself with her girlfriends, dancing on guys, twerking when she needs to, she's a social influencer that likes to interact with men and women on the platform to feel validated. Like, she, to me, very much sounded like she had this independent, modern mindset of her wanting to have her freedom and express her freedom as much as possible without really having any accountability. And my thing is, yeah, you should totally have the freedom to do that if that's what you want to do. The issue is Paul definitely sounded as if he came from a different mindset. He seems much more of a traditional guy. He's thinking, okay, look, I'm the one fitting most of these bills. I'm the one going out here taking these risks. I'm the one, spending most of the money taking care of things. Therefore, in response, I want you to be able to, protect what we are building, protect our name, protect our brand, however you put it. And he explicitly states this. And there are different times when she's complaining about the cooking and the cleaning and different things. And he's like, well, at the beginning, this wasn't a problem. At the beginning, you wanted me to go take these risks. You wanted me to go, work a little bit more to bring in more money. Like, this wasn't a problem. And so as we're continuing to talk, what I'm hearing is like, these people have totally different values. He wants a wife that's happy or more content being in a traditional setup. She wants to be modern, except for when it comes to money. She wants to be modern as long as it benefits her, and then she wants to be traditional when it comes to the monetary setup. And this also comes into another issue I think sometimes that we do have, or that I've seen in modern femininity, right? Where the gender roles can be very, very unclear, where you have the same strong, single, independent women who have their own money, have their own job, have their own bag or whatever, still want a guy to go take her out, to go pick her up, to go pay for all her bills. And look, for me personally, I think I love chivalry. I love being taken care of as a woman, but I'm saying I feel like you can't necessarily have her cake and eat it too. Like, it is unfair on one end to tell men, oh, we're equal, we're all these different things. I don't need your help here. But then now to put expectations on him to still be traditional when you want a modern setup. And I think that's unfair. And what I saw modeled in this entire, I guess, skit, or that entire series, whatever it is I saw a woman who, she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. She wanted a setup that benefited her mostly. And it didn't really seem as if she was totally and completely understanding of where he was coming from. And yes, she was, cooking and cleaning and doing some of those different things, but you could tell early on that her expectation was that this wouldn't be long term, because she was quick to complain about it. And she was quick to complain about, okay, well, I'm cooking and cleaning, but well, why aren't you doing it? And when he talked to her about, well, why are you going out and dancing with your friends and doing taking pictures and things that you know don't make you look single. She's like, well, I'm just being myself. I'm just being myself. And again, like a very much a modern independent woman, a woman that's not mindful of what does it mean to be in a relationship? What does it mean for me to operate as a unit versus as an individual person? And I think that's their biggest issue. I think that was at the core of the issue, is that she is a modern woman who is trying to be in a relationship with a man that has traditional values. And I'm like, either somebody has to change, somebody has to budge, somebody has to be willing to evolve, or it's going to continue to create tension or create chaos. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notifications. And thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we will talk soon. Bye.